the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
And what would you do if you're in David Tepper's shoes going forward?
So, first of all, I think this is, among the potential coaching openings, this has to be one of the worst in the NFL. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, you have no first-round draft pick this year. That belongs to the Bears. Second of all, your free agents include Jeremy Chin and Brian Burns, who still hasn't been paid yet. You got to figure out a way to pay both those guys because those are impact players on the defense. Third, you have no impact offensive player. And without a draft pick and without a lot of cap space, you're stuck with Jonathan Mingo, Laviska Shenault, and Adam Thielen for one more year. And the offensive line has not played very well. Fourth, David Tepper is notoriously impatient. This is his fourth head coach he's hired for the Panthers since 2018. He is going to have a short leash. He has always been far too involved in the day-to-day workings of the Carolina Panthers. This is not a job that's going to be like a first priority, like, hey, I want to go coach this team. And it's sad because you have the former number 1 overall pick, but nobody's going to be like, hey, I want to coach this team because there's nothing there. There's really nothing there. I worry a little bit about Bryce Young because I don't want him to generate scar tissue from this first year. You know, it's kind of like when Trevor Lawrence was in his rookie year at the Jaguars and he had receivers running into each other. Like the hope was you don't develop the bad habits. You don't make the bad habits worse habits. You don't end up like a guy like Kenny Pickett, who has not developed from the scar tissue that he had the first year in his in Pittsburgh. I don't have a lot of faith. Don't have a lot of hope for the Panthers. It's going to be really tough to convince any like hot shot offensive mind to take this job when you don't have a lot of resources and you don't have an owner who's willing to say, hey, you go do this, let me back out of it. So, and
this sounds like Jim Harbaugh to me.
I don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to take that job.
Okay.
I think Jim Harbaugh is I know that he coached the 49ers, but I think he is a Midwestern coach. So if there's any NFL job he's going to take, it's the Bears. But the first name I thought of that made me laugh when it comes to this job is Lincoln Riley. That would be incredibly funny to me. That man has not won meaningful games at the college level, so let's bring him to the NFL level. But in all seriousness, I think if you can get a guy like Bobby Slowick away from the Houston Texans, that might work. Frank Smith, offense coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. I would love to see Bryce Young in a Miami Dolphins kind of schemed up offense because he and Tua share a lot of similarities in how they approach the game, how they play the game. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. But I think it's the pass game coordinator for the 49ers as well. But it's going to be really hard to convince a coordinator, a up-and-coming coach to take this job because of how little the resources are in this room in Carolina. You don't have a lot you're working with.
A name out of it might be a little bit out of left field, but I saw I think it was Emery Hunt from CBS Sports recommended Pep Hamilton maybe if nobody else really wants to. I mean, he was a head coach in the XFL and did really, really well. He's been on multiple NFL staffs as, offensive specialist, passing game coordinator, things of that sort. So if we want to see, somebody get a first-time head coaching gig, he could be a name that's in the mix. It'd be fun to see. But I mean, like JP said, the fact that for all the reasons you just pointed out, you don't have a first-round pick, you got no impact players, like you're thrown to cereal boxes for the next year, and I don't know what's Carolina's cap situation look like right now, JP. I don't know if you have over the cap pulled up in front of you, because even without having the draft capital, if you got money and you can try to lure somebody away to be a go-to receiver, then that's cool. But at the same time, who the hell is going to want to come play there when you've got an owner who's too hands-on, who's too impatient, and like if I'm T. Higgins and Carolina calls I don't want to go to Carolina. So I think it's going to be hard to lure big name guys there to be like a go-to receiver, and especially because like we've seen situations where it's worked out. We've seen AJ Brown in Philadelphia, Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, but we've also seen DJ Moore in Chicago, and the Bears are still bad. So those are things to weigh if you're a receiver. Like, yeah, if they have the cap space and can throw money at a guy like T. Higgins, that's cool. But if I'm T. Higgins, I'm very much monitoring the situation and looking at what their coaching staff is before I even consider doing that.
So they currently have for 2024 the 13th most cap space in the NFL. But this is without paying Brian Burns yet.
Right.
And without paying Jeremy Chin. I think it would have been in their best interest if they traded Brian Burns to try and get the first round pick back. But now that you have him on the team, he is on your team. You better extend him. Like, you better keep him around because that's a really good football player. If you look at their upcoming free agents, I mean, Justin Houston's going to be a free agent. DJ Chark, free agent. Frankie Louvu, who's been phenomenal, free agent.
He's been very good.
Brian Burns, free agent. Jeremy Chin's going to be a free agent. Troy Hill's a free agent. Most of your impact defenders are going to be gone. So you got to find out a way to pay all those guys, but also lure in offensive players for free agency, but also be able to draft on days 2 and 3 and find impact players there, which is very, very hard. Like, I think finding Amon-Ra St. Brown, finding guys like Brock Purdy on day 2 and day 3 of the draft have kind of skewed like what people think day 2 and day 3 of the draft are. It's really hard to find impact players on those days. So now you got to do that. You're not going to have the blue chip first round pick. It's looking rough. If you take this job, you have to be guaranteed that you're going to get at least a good 4 years, 3 to 4 years to try and turn this around.
I think it's also a job that maybe if you're a coach who got fired after one stop and you think this might be your only way back at another opportunity where, look, like you said, with somebody like the younger coaches, the guys who might not get coach opportunity number 2, you have to be very selective and very careful here in terms of contract and timeline and that sort of thing. But I wonder if because the situation is so dire that Carolina goes with a bridge guy without announcing it's a bridge guy, where Vic Fangio,
like a David Culley situation.
David Culley kind of, but I mean, Vic Fangio would not surprise me. Maybe you go back to what's his name? Why am I blanking on? Sean McDermott. If he gets fired by Buffalo after this year, I can 100% see a swap
hire Sean
there.
McDermott. I don't think that's a bridge though. Like if they hire Sean McDermott, then that's.
I could see a swap there, couldn't you? Like some kind of thing where it's a soft landing, and because I just feel like it's ending with McDermott this year in Buffalo, and I don't think he'll be out of a job very long.
So I don't think Vic Fangio is going to take a head coaching job. I think he's perfectly fine being a defense coordinator. Some guys are cool with just drawing up cool plays. I think Ben Johnson very quietly is in this range. You're like, he doesn't have to be a head coach. He's cool drawing up plays only. Vic Fangio is really just fine drawing up defenses. I mean, he basically has revolutionized modern defenses in the NFL next to Bill Belichick. Anthony Lynn, also a potential name there, assistant head coach for the 49ers, running backs coach right now. I don't know if this would happen, but it'd be incredibly funny if David Tepper called Steve Wilkes again and was like, hey, do you want to come back and actually get the job? If I was Steve Wilkes, I'd be like, hell no.
Yeah, no.
You
kick rocks.
Yeah, go kick rocks. You didn't hire me the first time. You're not going to hire me now. It's just going to be a really tough. It's going to be a really tough hire for a new coach. Like if you're a first-year guy, I wouldn't go to Carolina. I think this is you bring in an experienced person who knows how to like right the ship or at least get some baseline level of play. Maybe an NFL.
I think it's kind of like Lovie Smith in Houston.
Maybe like an NFL coach who was out of the league for like a year or so. Like,
who's the best answer here then?
That's what I'm trying to think of.
Zimmer?
You know what?
I don't hate that.
I don't hate it, but I also don't.
What
think
is he
Mike
doing
Zimmer,
now? Actually, what is Mike Zimmer up to right
Bro
now?
is chilling with Minnesota Vikings payout money. He is
Okay.
fine.
Zimmer is just like, I mean, he's 67, but Zimmer just quietly, he was never like he's 72-56-1 as a head coach. Like you're looking at these seasons, it's like 7 wins, 11 wins, 8 wins, 13 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins.
The last thing Mike Zimmer was doing, he was an analyst for Deion Sanders at Jackson State.
Oh.
So I don't know if Mike Zimmer would actually want to come back to coaching in the NFL because of the way it ended in Minnesota, where it was very like rigid, hard ass.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if he would want to come back to that, but
I just feel like Mike Zimmer is pissed off all the time.
Yeah, you never know. And I don't know if you want those vibes around.
I might. All right, here's a fun one. What about you said a guy who's been out of the league for maybe a year. How about more than a year? Similar to like the Gruden route. What about Marvin Lewis?
I honestly would like that. I think Marvin Lewis deserves another shot in the NFL as a head coach. And
with Cincinnati for a very long time.
He should be able to right the ship, or at least get them back to a baseline level of play.
Yeah.
Like you just got to find someone who can bring some stability. But I think Tepper is going to go for the big swing here. I think he wants big fish. Like he wants to go bold, flashy. But he also
Harbaugh would probably be the biggest fish that he could land in that situation then, right? In terms of big and flashy.
Yeah, but I don't think Harbaugh would take that job.
I don't think he would either. But I'm saying if they're going to push for big and flashy, that would be who I would expect them to push after. I mean, I think a lot of Panthers fans are circling Ben Johnson, but I don't think he's taking that job. If he does take a head coaching job, it's not going to be Carolina. So Lou Anarumo, I don't know if he would go there. It's tough. So what happens?
I just don't think it's going to be a good hire,
like this,
right? Like I just don't think it really matters because I think they're just kind of stuck. And then if you're like Bryce Young, I mean, are you just at the point because of where this situation is, it's not really on Bryce? Or have you seen enough from Bryce this year where you're like, I think Bryce just might not be a franchise long-term answer at quarterback? Which way are you leaning more?
I think it's year one. I think you cannot make a good judgment of Bryce Young in year one with everything around him going wrong. I mean, he had 2 different play callers taking over at 3 different times.
Yeah.
He has his best receiver is a 30-plus Adam Thielen. There's not much to work with here. So you need to get somebody to bring him back to at least a baseline level of play, which is why you kind of need the experienced guy.
Did you see that Mingo reception or not?
Where he jumped out of bounds?
Mm-hmm.
He did a people's elbow to the turf rather than get his feet in. Yeah, that was hilarious.
That's one of my favorite things I've ever seen. And I did love the comments, like one of those where I'm like, oh, why? Like it's one of those jarring things where you did need to do that. Like it was one of those where I don't even know if you're a position coach, like what you even say. Like Mingo has run that route so many times in his life, and he just was like, I'm going to freestyle here. I'm going to do whatever I want to do right now.
That's like another thing when we're talking about Bryce. Like that's what he's working with. He's working with Jonathan Mingo, Laviska Shenault, Adam Thielen. Like they signed Miles Sanders, who's done next to nothing. They don't have anything there. And for a team that like actually had expectations to like maybe make a run at the NFC South coming into this year, with the fact that they had Bryce Young and Frank Reich was coming in and they built this really like good staff. They brought over Ejiro Evero from Denver. Like this was an exciting offseason for the Panthers, and shit had just completely hit the fan with Tepper being too hands-on, the multiple change of play callers. It's just a lot to put on him. And like it's not, when we look at it like on a scale, like 0 being urban in Jacksonville, it's compared to, I don't know, what was like the perfect, like Dak and his rookie year in Dallas, where just everything was perfect. Like it's a hell of a lot closer to being 0 than it is being 10. So I don't think we can put a lot of this on Bryce. Even yesterday, like Bryce made a few plays where you're like, okay, like there's clearly something there. Like he made a scramble where he broke, I think, like 37 tackles in one play to run for a first down. Like clearly the athleticism is there. Yes, the size is, it's a question mark being how.
Go. Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.